Welcome, and thank you for joining us for the 2023 program series Living Well Wednesday. My name is Jennifer LaSalle, Family and Community Wellness Agent for the West Plains District, and I will be your host for today. Our Living Well Wednesday is a virtual learning series hosted by K-State Research and Extension, family and consumer science professionals from across the state of Kansas. Many of our topics will touch on a wide variety of essential skills that empower you and your family to live, work, and thrive. Before we get started, I just wanted to go over a few housekeeping rules. Be respectful and open of others throughout the presentation. Feel free to type your questions in the Q&A box and comments into the chat box. The Q&A box does have a feature where you can ask anonymously if you are more comfortable with that. Our monitor, Christina, will make sure to go over the questions at the end of the presentation. Today's session will be recorded and posted to our Living Well Wednesday webpage, along with additional resources. You will be able to find all future and past programs on our website as well. We do want to acknowledge that KSRE is an equal opportunity employer. Therefore, we do not discriminate against anyone. So if there is a special request or concern that you need to allow for you to attend our programs, please reach out to us. We want to thank our presenters for joining us today, Monique Kerner and Tristan Cope. Monique is a FCS agent for the Cottonwood District, and Tristan is the Family and Youth Agent for Chisholm Trail District. And with that, I will turn it over to Monique and Tristan.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are glad that you were able to join us today. Like Jennifer said, we are here to present today about family meals and nutrition skills to get you started. So I am Tristan Cope, and I am the Family and Youth Development Agent in the Chisholm Trail Extension District. So this means I am in the Dickinson County and Marion County districts. Monique, I will let you go ahead and get started by introducing yourself.
Thanks, Tristan. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. My name is Monique Kerner, and I'm the Family and Community Wellness Agent for the Cottonwood Extension District. Cottonwood Extension District is composed of Ellis County and Barton County, and I'm out of the Ellis County office. All right, so Tristan and I are going to talk a little bit about family meals. I'm going to talk more on the nutrition side of things, portion, food groups, things like that. And then responsibilities of feeding based on the parent and the child. And then Tristan will go over some of the benefits of family meals, as well as some other tips to get you started. So this slide is showing us a food checklist. This is based on a child's average needs, and the child's food intake can sometimes increase during growth spurts. So maybe don't focus so much on daily amounts, but you can think of weekly or even monthly amounts and varieties to get a bigger picture of what nutrients your child is eating. When starting solid foods, it's good to just offer 1 tablespoon for every year of age. And then if the child is hungrier or would like more, it makes it easy to give seconds or thirds. It's just a little safety tip. It's important to have children sit when eating, just to reduce the risk of choking. And then just remember, small foods like hot dogs, grapes, raw carrots would need to be cut into small pieces, or maybe not even served to the youngest of children. Next slide. Okay, so could you please type into the chat your favorite meal or snack growing up? Make this a little more interactive. And then the image that we're looking at is the My Plate. This used to be known as My Pyramid by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. So my plate is a representation of a meal plate divided into sections for vegetables, fruits, grains, protein, and dairy or calcium-rich food groups. So if you look at the plate, it shows us to fill half our plate with fruits and vegetables. The grains, make sure you're serving some whole grains, at least half of your servings of grains should be whole, and then serving fat-free or low-fat milk and water rather than sugary drinks. So as you're looking at this, you might be wondering, does my plate have to look like this at every meal? And the answer is no. The plate is only a guide for planning and serving a variety of healthy foods. So the goal is to think of the plate as an entire day's worth of eating. So throughout the day, try to make half of what your kids eat fruits and vegetables, and the other half grains and protein foods. Okay, so the first section that we're going to look at are fruits. Depending upon the age of your child, you're going to want them to be receiving 1 to 1.5 cups per day. Fruits are an important part of a balanced diet. They contain necessary nutrients like vitamin C and A, potassium, antioxidants, and fiber. You can use fresh, frozen, or canned. It's important to keep in mind when buying canned fruit to choose fruit that is packed in juice rather than heavy or light syrup. And it's best to serve whole fruit over 100% fruit juice. Fruit juice has more sugars and calories in it and less fiber than serving the whole fruit. It's important to note too that the American Academy of Pediatrics suggests that children under age 1 do not require juice. Fruit juice can contribute to obesity and dental caries. So if you serve juice to your child, consider diluting it half and half with water and serving less than 4 ounces per day. Some other ideas to get servings of fruit would be to blend equal parts fruit and yogurt for a kid-friendly treat, or make a snack mix with whole grain cereal or dried fruit. Apples, bananas with some natural peanut butter can be a fun snack as well. Next slide. The next section we're going to talk about is the vegetable portion of my plate. And as you can see, it's one of the largest portions on the plate. That's because vegetables are so important. Just like Grandma used to say, eat your veggies. So there are several different types of vegetables. Vegetables contain vitamins and minerals needed for good health. They are low in calories and contain fiber. So the vegetable group includes dark green vegetables like broccoli, spinach, or kale, orange and red vegetables like squash, carrots, or sweet potatoes, beans and peas, so kidney beans, lentils, black-eyed peas. It's important to note that these can also fall into the protein group. There are starchy vegetables like corn, potatoes, plantains, and then there are other vegetables that don't necessarily fall into those groups like cauliflower and green beans. So for best nutrition, it's good to serve a variety of vegetables to your family each week. You can use fresh, frozen, or canned, and then just consider serving different colors of fruits and vegetables when meal planning. So think about the rainbow of colors. Some tips for including vegetables into your meals. Frozen vegetables are inexpensive and can be easily added to meals. You could try spinach and pasta or carrots and meatloaf. Zucchini can be hidden in muffins. You can chop up broccoli and mushrooms into small pieces and putting them on pizza. Steam or roast veggies to make them more tender. Maybe trying a variety of different ways to cook the fruits and vegetables to figure out the way that your child likes them the best. Another tip is kale chips. So it's just kale cut up with some olive oil and sea salt in the air fryer. Even the young men in my house like to eat those. So it's kind of a fast, easy way to get some veggies. And portion sizes, we're looking at 1 to 2.5 cups per day. Okay, the next section we're going to look at is the protein group. So foods that are high in protein help the body build and maintain the tissues and muscles of the body. They also have important vitamins and minerals like iron. So some examples would include beef, poultry, seafood, eggs. You can also get protein from plants such as beans, peas, nuts, and seeds. Soy products are also included here, like tofu or veggie burgers. When eating meats, it's important to choose lean or low-fat options. Beans or peas can be good finger foods. You can add those to soups. Hummus, which is pureed chickpeas, can be used as a dip for vegetables or on whole wheat crackers. You can also eat diced or shredded chicken with the fingers, so that can be a fun finger food. Meat and beans have protein, vitamin E, and iron, and we want children to get 2 to 5 ounces per day of the protein group. Right, next we'll look at grains. The grain group includes any food made from wheat, oats, cornmeal, barley, or other grains. Bread, tortillas, cereal, rice, and pasta belong in this group. And then when we're looking at grains, we're going to want kids and adults to get at least half their servings of whole grains. So whole grains would include oatmeal, brown rice, whole wheat bread. When you're looking at labels, you'll want to look for the word whole before the grain. Brown white rice and whole wheat pasta also count as whole grains. Whole grains have dietary fiber that helps you feel full and can prevent and treat constipation. So eating a diet rich in whole grains also might decrease the chances of getting heart disease and diabetes. Whole grains will help you feel fuller longer and preventing the feeling of hunger coming back quicker. Whereas refined grains, so these would be things like white bread and rice, they're processed and that removes many of the nutrients. Sometimes nutrients are, or the refined grains have nutrients put back in, they're enriched with those things. But again, these will still break down quickly and don't provide the fiber and nutrients that whole grains do. So the feeling of hunger would return quicker and you would feel hungry sooner. Looking at portion sizes, we're looking at 3 to 6 ounces. So kind of a quick reference for how much an ounce would be, it would be about the size of the palm of your hand. All right, and then the last food group we're going to look at is dairy or calcium-rich foods. So of course, milk would fit into this category as well as other dairy products such as yogurt and cheese. Calcium fortified soy milk can also be included in the dairy group. Besides calcium, dairy products also have vitamin D, which helps the body absorb calcium. So this will give your children healthy bones and teeth. Foods made from milk like butter, cream cheese, they don't have much calcium, so they are not necessarily a part of the dairy group. It's important to serve low-fat or non-fat milk and dairy products to kids over 2 years old. Up to age 1, children need infant formula or breast milk. And then age 1 to 2, children need whole milk because they need the fat for brain development. And then after age 2, you would want to switch them to low fat or non-fat milk. Another tip would be to use yogurt as a dip or for smoothies. You can also add milk to breads, muffins, potatoes, soup, sauces, and meat dishes. Calcium can be found in other foods other than dairy. So sometimes there are milk allergies. So things like leafy greens, beans, nuts can be good sources of calcium. And we would want to include 2 to 3 cups per day. All right. Next, we're going to switch to another topic called the division of responsibilities. So this just lists what the parent's job is and then what the children's job is. So I was just looking back at some of the other comments. So hamburger casserole and baby carrots, so all yummy things, pickles, peanut butter, popcorn. Popcorn would be considered a whole grain, so that's awesome. Okay, so moving on to division of responsibilities. So as an infant, the parent's job is to choose what the infant eats, and the child's job is to choose how much. So there aren't a lot of choices for infants, but the parents would choose breast milk or formula or a combination. When parents are feeding the child, we want to pay particular importance to the feeding cues the infant is giving us. So we're going to want to pay attention to the baby's timing, tempo, frequency, and amounts. A good resource to look up, there are nice videos on YouTube about paced bottle feeding, which can be used to feed breast milk or formula through a bottle. And it just really helps you pay attention to the baby and the cues that they're giving you to help prevent overfeeding. Okay, and then again, the next slide is going to show us the division of responsibility for infants that are maybe starting solids and that are a little bit older. So again, up to age 1, we're going to want to be feeding a baby breast milk formula or a combination of, and we're going to be paying attention to those feeding cues. If the baby is opening their mouth and wanting to be fed, or if they're turning their head and refusing. Starting solids should be based on what the child can do and not necessarily how old the baby is. So sometimes you'll hear hard and fast rules about you need to start solids at 4 months, or you need to start solids at 6 months. So parents can just help guide that transition to solid foods by offering whole foods as close to their natural state as possible as the child is developmentally able to handle them. And so just quickly, some developmental signs to watch for. If a child can sit up well without support, the child is interested in meals and family dinner, the baby has lost the tongue thrust reflex and does not automatically push solids out of his or her mouth. The baby is ready and willing to choose, and perhaps the baby is developing more of a pincher grasp where they're using their thumb and forefinger rather than scraping up items with the palm of their hand. Next slide. And then the next slide just shows the division of responsibilities for the parents and the children through toddlers through adolescence. So the parent's job is to provide what, where, and when. And then the children's job is how much and whether to eat the foods offered by the parent. So this really encourages parents to trust that their children will determine how much and whether to eat what the parents provide. I think this is hard for parents, mothers especially. We want to feed our children. We don't want them to be hungry. But if you have a regular schedule of meals and snacks, even if a child refuses a snack or meal, they're not going to starve until the next time food is served. So again, the parents' feeding jobs are to choose and prepare the food, maybe in smaller amounts, just to it's better to let the child ask for more than to pressure them into finishing what's on their plate. And again, introducing foods in small amounts. We also have to remember to be patient. These are all new things for kids, and so sometimes it takes a while for them to even want to smell or lick or taste a new food. There's some research out there that says it may take up to 15 times of exposure to a new food before a child will try it. So just continue to provide those regular meals and snacks, making sure to include healthy foods, making sure eating times are pleasant, maybe step-by-step showing the children by example how to behave at family meal time. It's a good idea to eliminate distractions and be good company with your child. Talk to them about the foods that you're serving and the foods they are trying and eating. So just be considerate of their lack of food experience without catering to their likes or dislikes. I usually encourage parents not to be a short order cook. If you know that you're introducing a new food, maybe make sure that you're also serving something that you know that the child enjoys. So then on the child's side, their job is that they'll eat the amount that they need. They will learn to eat the food that their parents eat. They will grow predictable, and they will learn to behave well at mealtime. Okay, and then the last slide just shows some phrases that can hinder kids to try new foods, especially for picky eaters, and then some phrases that can help. So as a caregiver, you play a big role in your child's eating behavior. What you say has an impact on developing healthy eating habits. So we want to stay away from those negative phrases and change them into positive, helpful ones. So some phrases that can help, instead of maybe trying to bribe them or cajole them into eating, maybe just talk about the food that you're serving. Talk about its color, its consistency. Is it crunchy? Is it soft? Describe the food to your child. It's also a good idea to help them start learning what fullness feels like. And so instead of, again, trying to bribe or cajole them with some of those phrases, instead talk to them about, well, how is your stomach feeling? Is it feeling full? Or are you hungry? Is your tummy growling because it wants some food? Or has your tummy had enough? So helping them kind of realize what those hunger cues are, and when they're feeling full and are satisfied. And then instead of saying something like, see, that didn't taste so bad, where it kind of infers that the child was wrong to refuse the food, maybe talk about, if they liked it, or, everybody has their favorite foods, and some people like certain foods and other people don't. So, and then the final thing is dessert. Instead of saying things like no dessert until you eat your vegetables, or until you eat 2 more bites of food, where we're bribing or cajoling them. Again, just try to say things like, we can try those vegetables again another time, or maybe talk to them about how they prepared the food. Maybe they would like it raw instead of cooked, those types of things. So feeding can be an emotional, frustrating, and worrisome issues. Also, between 18 months and 3 years, children undergo several changes in development that could lead to mealtime tension. The first is growth. When children are young, they're growing at an incredibly fast rate. And so usually once they hit 18 months or so, they might slow down with that growth. So they might not eat as much as they used to. The next thing is toddlers are famous for testing their independence and control. And this is no different at mealtime. The me do it, or I want to do it. They want to make those choices. So one tip that could help with that is allowing them more control in their playtime and following their lead during play. And hopefully this will help the kids follow their parents' lead later when they need them to. And then the last thing is just consider the toddler's energy. Typically, they are all about play and moving and exploring, and they probably aren't too interested in sitting and eating. So often by the time they do get hungry, they're ravenous and they're ready to eat, and maybe supper or snack isn't quite ready. So maybe just consider using those routines to help them learn to notice their signs of hunger and when they're full. All right, and the next slide, Tristan will.
Yes, thank you, Monique. So now that we've gotten a little bit of a baseline for what the nutritional components are for building your plate, and then we dove into some ways that parents or caregivers can have that responsibility, as well as what the child's responsibility is, we jumped into what does it mean if you have picky eaters? Because I know that somebody out there for sure has a picky eater in their household, or maybe they are the picky eater. I saw somebody in the chat box did not feel like they wanted to try the pickles and peanut butter. So I don't know if you'd classify that as a picky eater, but maybe a brave or adventurous eater for that one. So we are now going to kind of jump into the different types and what it means to have a family meal. So family meals themselves are grounded in research that offer a wide variety of physical, social, emotional, and academic benefits for all realms of development. And this is for the entire family, not just for that young child. But with the family dinner project, they actually describe a number of benefits that are listed on the screen. These include everything from a better academic performance to higher self-esteem, a greater sense of resilience, a lower risk of substance abuse, a lower risk of depression, healthy eating patterns in young adults, and this also includes a lower rate of obesity and a lower likeliness of developing eating disorders. And then, of course, kind of as Monique had hinted to during our picky eater phrases, you're talking about those food patterns you're talking about and you're describing what different food tastes like. So you're going to see an increase in vocabulary for young children. When we jump into the tips for planning a family meal, the number one most important thing that I would recommend is to keep it simple. This is especially true if you're not used to eating a family meal together regularly. You want to start small and have a few different meals. This could mean you're going to plan for Sunday lunch together, or maybe it's a Sunday evening dinner, or maybe it is Monday morning breakfast. Start small. Choose maybe 1 or 2 meals that you're going to intentionally focus on over the next 15 days or 15 times, just as Monique had suggested, because it takes 15 times for that pattern to develop if they're trying a new food. You want to try something. Try it simple for a couple different times to really get it ingrained into a pattern. When you're looking at keeping it simple, another thing to do is find a meal that you know your family is going to enjoy. And maybe that means it's just a portion of the meal. It could be the protein or it could be your grain. And then you can be adventurous from there. But start small and keep it simple. The next tip for planning that family meal is to actually involve your whole family. So the USDA, right here on the graphic on your right-hand side, the United States Department of Agriculture, they actually have a really great graphic. And this is going to be available for you on the website, the Living Well Wednesday website, after the presentation today. So you can go on and print this off, as well as some additional resources that we'll talk about a little bit later on. But what this resource does, is it allows you to work together with your family to build your menu. So when you're thinking of having the whole family involved, you can start by identifying maybe that protein. So you as the caregiver can say, our protein is going to be chicken tonight, but I would love for you to be able to help me choose what vegetable we're going to have. Are you thinking that you want broccoli and cheese, or do you want fresh green beans tonight? What's something that you would like to try for a vegetable? You would then do this too with your fruits and maybe your grains if you have older children who have more of a sense or different options of that grain that you have. But also if you have young children, give them choices. That's an easy option for them to say, I would like to have a strawberries or peaches for my fruit tonight. You can also, on the back of this resource, there is a little map that looks like your plate where you can have a younger child draw. Maybe they're drawing a strawberry and they're describing that taste to you. So they can be involved in that menu planning process. The other component for our tips for planning a family meal is making it fun. Family meals are for nourishment. They're for comfort, they're for support. They're a time that you get to know and build that relationship with your family members. So the Strengthening Families program 7 to 17, they introduced a concept called family conversation jars. I personally love this concept. I think it's a great way for you to learn about your family members, and then your family members to learn about you as the caregiver. So the family conversation jar is quite literally what it sounds like. I have a graphic here, but it is just a jar, or it could be a cup, and you can cut up different pieces of paper that have various questions on it. You could also write them on popsicle sticks, and it can sit in the middle of your table. So during your meal, you can pull from the jar, maybe each family member does, and then you read what's on the stick, then you answer the question. You would take turns answering that question. So for example, they have simple questions that maybe it's directed towards parents. Like, what was your first job that you ever had? I would love to hear it. Let's actually type in the chat box. What was your first job? We'll make this kind of like our family conversation. Since many of you may be eating your lunch right now during this webinar, I would love to see, type in the chat box, what was your first job that you had or that you remember? For mine, it was babysitting. Some of you may have shared this experience, but that was something that I had the opportunity to do. I would go over to my neighbor's house and I would watch them on date nights and then on the weekends and sometimes after school. And then as I got older, I worked at an ice cream shop, which I missed dearly. And it was such a fun job that I was able to have. So have those meaningful conversations. It can be simple conversations or it can be deep conversations like, tell us what things make you feel loved. That's a little bit of a deeper conversation where you're describing emotions, you're describing maybe relationships, and you're bringing up harder topics, but in a way that is safe and that feels comfortable. We do have a resource for this, again, that you would be able to have after this presentation that has a list of different conversation starters that you can just cut up and throw into a jar and it be a ready to go conversation jar for you. So we'll share that link. It'll probably be on the website again after this presentation. Let me see if somebody typed in the chat box there. Fixing up pallets of used military computers for my customers was the first job. I love that. Sherilyn says feeding baby calves, one of my favorite things to do as well. Working at the Dairyette, Taco Tico. I'm loving the variety of jobs that we have here and that you are sharing. And it's such a fun way for you to learn about others and learn about maybe their backgrounds, what their passions were, or maybe what was not their passions. Maybe they did not enjoy having to work at the Dairyette because that meant they had to do a lot of different dirty things, or maybe they loved it. So you can learn a little bit more about each of your family members there, and your children will be able to learn a little bit more about you as a parent. And then, of course, we want to make sure that we are minimizing our screens. So during our family meals, we want these to be intentional, meaningful times that we're building relationships and filling our bodies with nourishment. So this means steering clear from our screen time. Put that phone on silent and maybe put it over on the shelf or leave it in the kitchen and go eat in your dining room. But have that time or that hour as an intentional time that you're focusing on your family and on your relationships. So as we're looking at other ways that your kiddos can help while you're in the kitchen, when I was preparing this slide, I had mentioned to Monique, I could do a whole presentation, I think, on ways that children can help in the kitchen and the developmental milestones that they're learning just from helping you in the kitchen. So one of my favorite things to do is have your children help you, because by helping you, they're building their sense of regulation, they're building their sense of autonomy, they're building so many developmental milestones and developmental concepts just by helping you. And this could be for children of all ages. So you can have a young child help you prepare the table. They can wipe down that table. Maybe they can put different things into the trash, get it ready. They can, of course, help to read the cookbook. By reading the cookbook, they're actually working on their literacy and they're working on sequencing concepts. They can help to rinse the vegetables or fruits and have them prepared so then you can help to cut them up. And maybe if it's a strawberry or maybe if it's peaches, they can help to dice them up with a soft knife or a butter knife. One of my favorite things to do, of course, is describe your cooking terms. So are you scrambling eggs? Are you folding in the dough? What are you doing? Talk aloud while you're cooking, and then your children are going to be developing their vocabulary, which again is a literacy concept that they're going to be developing and increasing. That's going to strengthen their literacy so they are able to develop and understand future words when they're reading in first, second, third grade and beyond. When you're going through the foods, maybe you need 4 strawberries or 4 eggs from the fridge. Have them help you to count them as you're picking them up. If they're not able to carry the eggs, or if you don't trust them to hold those eggs without cracking them all over, help them say, okay, we have 1 egg, 2, 3, and let them say 4 next. You're working on a mathematic concept right there. But it's also okay if it gets messy. Part of raising children and part of having children help you in the kitchen is understanding that things do get messy, but you can help to control that environment a little bit as well. So maybe you have them measuring things or adding ingredients and you're over the counter and they're standing on a safe space to be able to do that. Another great way that children can help is setting the table. This could be a great mathematic concept as well. Maybe you have an older sibling who is at sports practice, so they are not home yet. So you can say, okay, how many plates do we need to set at the table today? We have 4 people in our family, but Sherilyn's not here today. So we need to have how many plates at the table? 3. Yes, that's right. We need 3 plates at the table. That's a great opportunity for them to work on all kinds of skills when they're practicing setting that table. Another one, of course, is stirring the ingredients. They're actually, when they're stirring ingredients and even kneading and shaping dough, they're going to be using their fine motor muscles. That means like your fingers and your hand muscles. By using those and you're thinking like stirring the ingredients in a bowl or even kneading dough, if you're making like a homemade pizza, they're actually making sure that their fingers are strong. So when they go to, I was going to hold a pencil for you. When they go to hold a pencil, they have that pincher grasp and they have that fine motor muscles formed. This is going to ensure that they're able to write and it's developing that writing skill that's needed later on in their development. And then, of course, when you're looking at measuring and adding ingredients, that's a great opportunity for a 2-year-old all the way up into your middle school, high schoolers to help you. You could introduce more fractions with them. You can do all kinds of things such as conversions from teaspoons to tablespoons. You can make that as advanced as you need to, depending on your children. And then, of course, that cutting up soft fruits, we talked about that a little bit earlier. They could be working on spatial awareness during that. If you need a big piece of butter, so you need 4 tablespoons versus 1 tablespoon, what line do you cut on? That spatial awareness or that mathematical concept there. And then last but not least, helping them to clean up the table. This will not only help you, but it will also help the child develop that sense of regulatory. So they're taking pride in their own actions and aware that they're able to help clean up that area for you. This could be as simple as scraping their plate into the trash. It could be putting their plate in the sink and washing it off. It could be taking the different condiments that are on the table and putting them back into the fridge. There's several ways that you can get creative with helping to clean up that table. And then when we're thinking about what this means, like holistically, as we have our building our healthy plate and we're talking about children that are picky eaters, or ways that we can help them to maybe overcome some different inversions that they have, and then ways that they can help us in the kitchen when we have a family meal, we want to ensure that we're being a healthy role model. So this means that we're showing by example. We are trying new foods. We're speaking aloud when we're going through all of our cooking. We're talking with our family and involving them in that process for what kinds of things do you want to eat at this meal? And as you advance, they can maybe help you to plan out different meals of the week. We do have resources for that as well from the My Plate that we'll link later on, but there's resources where it's actually what you would need to build your grocery list for a protein, a vegetable, a grain, a fruit, and a dairy for each different meal of the week. So it's a really helpful resource if you want to get started with that meal planning. And of course, one thing that Monique and I kind of talked about when we were thinking of having children help you is going to the grocery store together. I know this can be a little intimidating. There's lots of hands. It can be very busy at times, but there's so many opportunities for your children to help you learn, or for your children to learn and for your children to help you with that family meal planning when you get to go to the store together. Maybe you're looking at the nutrition label and you're talking about that aloud with your older children. Maybe children who are younger, you're making the choice between grapes or you're making the choice between apples for the fruits that week, so they can visually see it right then and there. There's opportunities for your children to help you while you're at the store and for them to learn as well. Another one that we want to think of is, again, focusing on each other at the table, making sure that you're using each other as a resource. You're talking to each other and you're building that relationship and learning more about one another. You're building that intentional time to get to know each other. I like to call this one-on-one time or my time, which is when you really, as a caregiver, are spending intentional time with your child. You're getting my time. They're understanding what you're doing, and they get to ask you questions in maybe a less pressured environment. Another one would be encouraging physical activity. Having a time that, as a healthy role model, that you're encouraging physical activity. This could mean maybe you're going to walk after your meal together. Or maybe if it is a Sunday afternoon, or hopefully if we get some nice weather here in Kansas where it's not too crazy windy, maybe you can go outside and play ball together, play a little game of basketball. I know growing up in my family, one way that we tried to encourage some physical activity was doing a game of horse, which is quite literally spelling horse out with the basketball. And it was a fun way that encouraged our family to bond together after our family meal. And then we got a little bit of physical activity in too. Last but not least, I want you to utilize us as a resource. There's several resources out there. That's K-State Research and Extension, because I put the map up here. So each and every county that we have in Kansas has an extension office for them. I would encourage each of you to reach out to your extension office if you would like more resources about ways to build a healthy plate or family meals, or just a healthy lifestyle in general. There's all kinds of resources that extension has to offer, anywhere from agriculture to community involvement, to our 4-H youth development program, and of course, health, nutrition, and family components. There's a lot of different information that we are available and ready to help you with. Another one I wanted to share tonight or today would be the USDA My Plate. This is on your left-hand side of your page right here. If you go to this website, which we'll have linked in our resources after, they actually have life stages anywhere from pregnancy all the way through adulthood. And so you can click on each life stage and it shares a little bit more about like infancy, or it shares more about toddlers, some food versions that might be developing there, in addition to different meals for each kind of stage. So I thought it was a really interesting website to be able to utilize. And the last resource that I want to share today is the Family Dinner Project. The Family Dinner Project is actually a nonprofit that was started that encourages family dinners together. So this has conversation starters on there. It also has different meals that you can try. It has, I think, weekly meals that are updated. One was the pasta primavera that looked really good. And so I would encourage you to check out that website as well, just as an additional resource in addition to us as Extension and the USDA My Plate. Some other resources that we wanted to share today will be available after our presentation, but it comes from the family conversation jar that I talked about, the My Plate grocery list. There's a My Plate menu option. There's additional recipes. There's the weekly calendar that I mentioned. We do have a link to the phrases that hinder and phrases that help. I know it was a little bit small on your screen, especially if you were looking off of an iPhone or a tablet. So we do have those available for you to click on and look at a little bit later. And then a link to that Family Dinner Project. So I hope each of these resources will help to guide you from our conversations today to explore further. But if you do have further questions, I know Monique and I are both willing and available. We will have our contact information here on a slide that you can reach out to us and ask us more questions because we would love to help. So with that, does anybody have any specific questions? And you can unmute if you'd like, or you can throw them in the chat box. Or if you want to ask them in a different format, you can ask them in the Q&A. I'm reading some of your past chats and they're very funny. I'm entertained by them.
While we're waiting for some questions to roll in, I thought I'd just share a story from when I worked at a childcare. We served family style meals. And so even the little ones, about a year old, we would pass around a bowl of pears or whatever. And if the child couldn't do it, we would help them. Everybody would serve themselves, and then the teachers would sit down and and eat. And, oftentimes little kids, they all want to eat the fruit first or whatever their favorite food is. And they would hurriedly eat that. And then they would ask for more. They wanted more. And so the teachers would just encourage them to continue to eat, and they would talk about whatever it was until the teachers had a chance to eat. And it was kind of interesting to watch, because in that time that it took the teachers to eat or the caregivers to eat, you could see the kids starting to explore some of the other foods on their plates. So just remember that when you're serving foods, just be patient with kids and give them that time to maybe, explore some of the other foods on their plates.
I love that, Monique. That's always a fun story to share, especially because it just shows that sometimes if you provide the opportunity, they'll explore it.
Yes. And it's amazing too what little kids can do. Even the 1-year-olds, I think you touched on this a little bit. The 1-year-olds can get up and go dump their plates and, put some pears on their plate or whatever. So don't underestimate little kids.
Absolutely. Anything's helpful too, to help clear the table. Well, if you do have further questions, or if you'd like to contact Monique or I, we do have our contact information here. But each of you do have extension agents and offices that you can reach out to. So you can usually reach them by KSRE, K-State Research and Extension, and then you can kind of find contact information from that website. And I believe there is a link in the chat box that says where the webinar locations are located at. All right, Jennifer, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Tristan and Monique. That was such great information, and we want to thank you for taking time to present today. I'm sure all of us have learned something new to take home and practice. We do encourage you all to complete our survey by using the QR code on the screen. This will also be sent to you right after and will be available on the Living Well website. Feel free to provide comments and suggestions. If you would like more information or additional resources, please reach out to your local extension agent. If you are not sure where your local office is, you can find it by going to ksre.kstate.edu. You will be able to hover over the county and find the location of your local office. And finally, this completes our winter series. We want to thank you all for attending, and please stay tuned for some future Living Well Wednesday webinars. And so with that, again, we want to thank you for coming, and thank Monique and Tristan for the wonderful presentation.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Mm-hmm.